word? Like process in a really drastic way, sometimes physically. So I'll talk about that in a bit. So maybe we could just go around and introduce ourselves. Just one point though, so for new people, is that after the content bit, we're going to do like a guided balancing meditation thing. And because Dustin's not been here before, I'm going to do a bit of a classic one, which is always good to do for everyone anyway. And that's how I do an aura transformation balancing, or how I teach the new aura mediators how to do a balancing. So we'll just go over those steps again. And that bit is not to feel like I am Sarah Jennings is not doing a balancing on you right now. I'm just signposting what the work you need to do on yourself during that part, that meditation part. So I'm not balancing you in this process. It's you balancing yourself, but I'm just guiding it because it's not distant energy work. Okay, so yeah, and Annalie confirms that she is an aura mediator. So that's really cool. The course in England is actually almost full. I think there's like one place left, so we're like almost 8 people, which is really cool. And that's the March one, and then the next one is going to be in June, end of June, and Therese Lindberg is actually going to be doing that, the last leg of my training. So she's going to be joining me from Sweden, so that's exciting. And yeah, Megan, do you want to start? Say hello. How was aura transformation for you? Where are you at in your process?
Let's see. I had my aura transformation the beginning of last June. So it's been a whirlwind actually. Clearly I was very unhappy with what I was doing at the time, and my job was actually causing me a lot of pain too, physical pain. And I manifested my own firing within the month, pretty much. Yeah, so I lost my job, and that was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So then I was speaking with my dad, who was doing a course in hypnotherapy. So I spoke with him, and it's something that I've always been interested in, and it's something that I've done before and I've found effective as well. And so I went and did the hypnotherapy course too. So I'm actually now a certified hypnotherapist, and I'm waiting for all my paperwork in Switzerland to be accomplished, because man, they love their paperwork. But yeah, so I should be having my practice up and running within the next 2 weeks, hopefully. And it's actually incredible, because I found something that's really fulfilling, and it's a lot like the aura transformations, kind of, where you can see the transformation happen right in front of you. And I do a lot of trance work as well, and I know that I do go into trance while I'm doing the sessions too, which is I don't know, it's just an incredible way to connect with people. And I know that there's a little bit of overlap in some of the techniques, but it's I don't know, it's incredible how powerful we are. And I love that I get to work with love and light and joy and transforming and all of that. So yeah.
What do you mean by trance? Just to explain what you mean.
Trance work, it's just going into a different, like an altered mind. Like, so when we're talking here, we're in our beta waves, whereas like you go lower and it's alpha, then theta, then delta. So I pretty much work with people in alpha and theta. The delta work is the really deep hypnotic work, where it would be for pain management or partial anesthesia. Yeah, so people who can't have anesthesia or take painkillers or things like that, we teach them techniques to control their own pain, which is incredible.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. And so what was your, in terms of processing emotion, or like an emotion, did you have an emotional detox after your aura transformation? Or was it a balance?
There was some balancing, there was bucket loads of tears, there was there was a lot of it. I did a lot of emotional work too while I was doing my own hypnotherapy as well. But I was doing the energy balancing, and I was actually teaching some of the people that I was in school with, because they were told a lot of cord cutting
Mm.
techniques
Mm.
between, and I was like, yeah, but that feels so violent because you're cutting your own energy as well. And it's a lot nicer just to reel that in and reclaim it and reabsorb that for yourself. Where I was working with one of my classmates, and she said, oh my gosh, that feels so much better already. She's like, I was just trying to cut it, not
Mm.
thinking, I was thinking I was cutting other people's energy. And I was like, yeah, but you don't want to do that either. Just thank them and give it back, and then you know be grateful for it, and then take yours back as well. And if you go from a place of gratitude and this doesn't serve me anymore, so like, in that way you can be whole. Because if you're cutting things, then you're not focusing on your own wholeness. So
Mm.
yeah, I got to share a little bit with some of my
Nice.
classmates some of the techniques, and I found that one is still so powerful. I do it every day. So
Yeah, I was like very pleasantly surprised seeing one of the photos you posted of yourself. It must have been about 3-4 months after your aura transformation. I was like, oh, it was like
yeah.
crystal energy. You could
Yeah,
see it.
that was in October, and it was just after my first certification of the hypnotherapy thing. But it was like the hypno was expediting all of the emotional work that I'd started
Mm.
with the aura transformation. Because even before I left, people were just like, oh, you've just got this glow about you, and like, and I was like, yes, I've got my glow on, I'm bringing my glow with me. And
It's
and
only going to
I
get better, I promise.
yeah, and I was using that as a way to connect with my classmates as well. So when I was doing my energy balancing, then I would do like a slight self-hypnosis, like just going into a light trance state, and just picturing every person in my class, but just imagining their heart centers and imagining my heart center, and having our heart centers kind of connect in a shared held space, basically. And it was actually really, really beautiful. It was a really great way to connect with people. And then I felt like I created more authentic connections, and I could speak my own truth. Whereas before, I felt like I didn't have a place to do that. And it's weird being back here because I'm missing my love bubble that I created.
But you sound so different when
Yeah.
we did it in June. Like you,
Oh
you
yeah.
sound like a different person.
Oh, I feel like a different person. Totally. Completely. And it's wonderful, frankly.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, super happy, and I'm grateful for it. Geneva is a little bit weird though, because I haven't found my bubble here. So, when I was reading your post that you had up on Facebook too, where you were talking about how in Exeter you hadn't quite found your people, you hadn't quite found um, that same energy, or people that you could share your ideas with and things like that. So I'm working on that right now,
Mm.
while waiting on my paperwork.
Well, it's happened to me
So
before, like when I had my aura transformation and when I was doing all that self work on myself, like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was in Lancaster. So I'd lived there a long time and I knew all these sort of people in my old way of being. And then suddenly
yeah,
there was this, and then what I likened it to was 9 months of gestation of your new energy being in the same place in Geneva,
hmm
your new energy being in that space, and giving it 9 months for the new people to be attracted and come, a different kind of people being attracted to you as you are now. And it just takes some time. But the
yeah,
Exeter thing, like I have found tribe or friends here now. That
yeah,
wasn't very clear, but I'm still choosing to leave because there's other things going on. But I think
yeah.
another post I have to write really is just about home is the feeling of home, and tribe is actually within.
Mm.
It's
See, I find
not something you touch outside of yourself. I mean, there is that, you can do that, but then there's the danger that you put home in your child or in your partner or in friends or in tribe or community, and then if they're not there, then you feel lost and not at home. So that's what part of that exploring that has been, that home is within me. So now I have no problem like going around the world. There might be moments of feeling lonely and all that, but I know that I'm harboring those sensations in my body instead of trying to attach them to things outside of myself.
Yeah, so I actually because I was gone for 3 months. So it was there's a time that I was not in Geneva, a long time. I was in, New Mexico, really far away. But when I was in New Mexico, that was when I actually felt like, oh yeah, home's right here. Like, I'm cool, I'm good. But at the same time, it's really nice to be able to have people to do things with and to share experiences with that don't revolve around my old life, which was, there, Geneva. It's really good if you want to go out and drink or
Yeah.
something like that. Or,
But also that's the old you's perspective, and I think as you're
yeah.
changing perspective, suddenly you'll see all the other people that do other stuff in that. It's just
Yeah, I did a mindfulness and art workshop over the weekend, and I actually reconnected with a friend that I hadn't seen in years, and it was incredible. So yeah, I made a couple new friends there too. So that's gonna
nice. Perfect.
Yeah,
It's really good to hear where you're at and have you
Yeah.
back here. We have you back.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Next. Who's next? Dustin?
Sure. I'm Dustin. I'm based in LA. I got an aura transformation done in like January 2015. And it just sort of like it called out to me. Like I'd actually been I've always worked like very hard. I've been kind of a workaholic, and like it just sort of destroyed me on a lot of ways. It still is actually, but it's like better now. Um, I was going through this period where like I had this like really intense client. I was like a freelance editor. And I just had this idea of like, I need to strengthen my aura. I need to strengthen my aura. And I found Kundalini yoga, and I started doing like every day, like their like breathing exercises and their movements to try to just sort of like build something around me and give me some energy to keep going just for my day to day. And then like in like researching ways to strengthen aura, I found aura transformation. And then I had it done by Sophie Helmer. And then like it kind of like changed everything. Like I kind of I just got like a lot more boundaries. I was able to kind of like handle a lot more. It became easier and easier to say no. And I've been able to like make a lot more happen. Like I started traveling more. I started getting better work. I started making more money. And then like I've gotten sucked, like recently I've gotten kind of sucked back into some old stuff. I feel like I've been going through like a work divorce for the past year. And like that's kind of coming to a head now because there I didn't mean to become a freelancer. I kind of like I kind of just fell into that because like that's how the economy is working out. I'm in a creative field. So I kind of like went back to like an old client who was like a boss of mine, like back when I was like in my early 20s, had no idea what I was saying yes to, was getting worked to the bone. And I kind of like started working with her again. And then this year, like that really, I've had more boundaries than I've ever had before, but it's really started breaking down a lot. And that's kind of what I'm going through now. But in November of 2017, I had like the grounding done. I did like the Aura Mediator course. And I did the grounding, and like I was basically like just able to kind of like run through life again, like at full speed, without having to stop. But then like that energy has been kind of running out lately, and I'm realizing like, oh, I need to kind of like actually like have things around me be good and not just try to like sustain everything. So it's like kind of realizing boundaries on a whole new level. But in the past year, like I've been able to kind of like manage like these old like like not healthy, unsustainable attachments while building new stuff. And I got hired to write a movie. So which is what I've been wanting to do for a long time. So like I'm kind of in a place now where I'm kind of starting to like make my dreams come true, and I'm just trying to like let go of like the really old stuff that no longer serves me. And like I'm actually like in the last like 2 weeks of like working with this client. So like the divorce is like kind of the divorce is kind of getting fully finalized. But when I saw this post about like how this is all about processing emotions and kind of like what was it, massaging or like rewiring consciousness.
Mind sculpting.
Yeah, like I want to get really good at that because I kind of I've been like very a lot of this stuff is so like in terms of like my boundaries and like relationship patterns and relational patterns are so old. I kind of like don't even know, like I kind of just take them as like the basis of reality, and I just have this sort of like very deeply rooted sense of like I have to endure things as they're given to me. And I'm realizing like I don't want that anymore, and I never did. It's just sort of a habit, and it's like really deep down in there. But I'm finally getting to the point where I'm like, oh no, like I can see the bottom of the root. Let's like pull it up.
Mm.
And I didn't even realize that was a thing until this year, or until the middle of last year. Um, so that's kind of what brought me here today.
Yeah, and so what did you see? Did you get the? I don't know if you joined before or after. If I sent you the boundaries, what crystal gathering on boundaries?
What month was that? Was that?
I don't know, but it was all about architectural drawing, the architectural, energetic architecture of boundaries.
Oh, I don't think so.
I might send you that one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'd be
Write it on my hand diary.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what today's about. Really, is this? I think processing emotion is very much like peeling the onion layer, and it just never ends. Really,
Mhm.
I think that there comes a point well, for example, I am like, okay, well, that's enough of that now. Actually, I can just actually go into enjoyment and enjoy life rather than rehash over old patterns again and again. But what I'm noticing is that the deeper you go, the more you're refining, into this it's like much finer. It's much deeper, but it's really like refining your processes and refining your reactions and refining your behaviors. And when I mean refine, like I don't know, in my head it's sort of like, when you put salt and pepper in a mill and it comes out, the big chunky things that were your maybe wounds and issues are becoming really fine material that you can sift through much easier. And but I think that when you come to the behaviors you're talking about with like a deep root, is often we're either inheriting stuff, like is it actually yours, these emotions you're carrying? Is it your mum's or your dad's or school or friends you're around or the news, or how much is actually ours? And that's what maybe will be really useful for you today when we do the balancing meditation thing, that you can start really, like what Megan was saying, really reclaim your energy and let other people's go, and make sure you're not getting them all mixed up in the middle.
Mhm.
And I think as well with an aura transformation, when life is really hectic and like, let's say you're a workaholic or you have all those behavioral patterns that get you into the same thing again and again, then having an aura transformation isn't always an instant quick fix. And
Yeah.
actually, it's giving you extra power and space to actually do the work that might have taken you maybe 20 years more, or never do it.
Mhm.
So I think you're probably very much on track. And certainly the more you witness yourself, the way you've been doing stuff and the way you can witness other people and then start deciding, I don't want that anymore. That's when you start living in a future that you've imagined and walking towards it, rather than reliving in past material all the time.
Mhm.
Mm. And it sounds like before your aura transformation that your aura was very much like a sieve, or not even existent.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what it was there.
And
So, yeah.
I don't know how many people you've aura transformed yet, or if at all, but you will notice as time goes on that pretty much, I would say 80 or more % of the people that come for an aura transformation literally have no more aura left. And they all
Mm.
see it they all sense it in a different way. Like, I don't like being in crowded rooms, or I feel overwhelmed with other people's emotions, or I take on others' emotions. Oh, I'm a really oversensitive empath, or I'm absolutely shattered at the end of the day. Oh, my children frazzle me, or I feel totally out of my body all the time, or I have to do self-care every day, or kundalini or tai chi, or meditate for 3 hours every morning before I even start my day, because I have no protection. So lots of people have very different ways of you know of seeing how that is,
Yeah.
and sensing how it is. So it sounds like to me you didn't have much aura left at all, and you had to work really hard to keep it. And then you mentioned something like you feel that, like, the effects of so the grounding thing that Dustin's talking about is when you become an aura mediator, you have a 4-hour personal session, just you and the instructor. And so, and some of the instructors call that a grounding. I think we've just called it like another aura transformation or personal session or something. And in that, the person is being pulled away or disconnected from all the collective old aura type material in our environment or from the people around them, really pulled away from all that and placed in their own individual platform of consciousness that is very much like their energetic home, where you can feel way more grounded and way more like in your own space and commanding your space, and therefore a lot less influenced by outside influences or family members and so on. And I think did you say that you feel like, oh, that starts to wear off after a while, like you end up in old patterns? Or
Well, I think what I meant was like I think I became so much more aware of my own energy that like I kind of, the cloudiness around like this work relationship I have kind of became more and more clear, and it's sort of, I don't know, I kind of just sort of sustained it out of habit without any heart in it. It's just I'm ready for it to be done. So
yeah, so basically
I have like 2 weeks left. So
things become intolerable when you're really in your own energetic platform and home, and you're in where you're supposed to be. It becomes very difficult to keep up with stuff that isn't in your truth or isn't in service to you, and it, like, because of my temperament, that translated as sort of like dragon fire, like get out of my way.
Yeah.
And then very low tolerance. I mean, it feels different now, but when I first had my AT became an aura mediator really quick, 2 months after my AT, and it very like my tolerance for like the boundaries I felt that were very strong, so energetically from the aura transformation, were very much protecting my core values or morals or beliefs or who I think what I think is important. And it became a lot clearer to even understand that after having the aura transformation. So then there's this boundary protecting that. And then if your environment or the world around you is used to you not having that boundary, or used to standing in your energy or taking what they want, and then you have suddenly this power to go, yeah, and it can be a bit of a shock. So I often have to like warn people, like, just, you haven't had many boundaries before, so just watch out, because you might kind of like lash out when someone steps on it. And I don't know if other people have experienced that in here. It's a bit awkward, isn't it?
I'm more of a stonewaller.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, it might sound a bit cold, and this is maybe why I can move and friendships. So, you get to know someone, you get excited about it, and then you learn more about each other, and then you're like, actually, that doesn't really work for me, or something happens, and I don't have much issue anymore. I used to grieve about it or feel like, oh no, that's hurtful, I've lost something or something like that. And more and more as I've gotten older, I just feel quite, okay, it does sound harsh, but everyone is just a shadow in your play. So if we were just consciousnesses, like we are just consciousnesses, like if you imagine all the spirits in the world walking around and there's like the meat body, then everyone that's coming into contact with you is like, there to mirror something or share or show something. You're there to learn from each other. But even me and my daughter, I don't feel attached to her or own her or anything. And I feel that I've been here to teach her stuff, and she's been there to teach me stuff. But there isn't this ownership of other people or in the story. So it's easy to walk away and come back or all that kind of thing. Because there's this, I don't know if it's around attachment. I don't even know if I'm making sense to you guys. It makes sense to me about being able to say no, or being able to take time away, or being able to completely transform your life upside down and start again, like burn it to the ground and start again, because we have that option.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I wrote some things down. Oh yeah, you said about being a workaholic. So my name's Sarah. I'm a recovering workaholic.
Mhm.
This has been a big journey for me this year, because I think if you can really get down to the root of why you're a workaholic. So there was a time where there was this like belief in my system, so not like a logical one, that if I rest, I don't exist. Something like that. So I'm always working and always doing stuff and always creating and planning and all that stuff. Because if I stop, then like the world ends or something. Like my world ends. I end. It's like not a logical thing, but it was really uncomfortable. And I used to have to call a friend in South Africa and be like, Dawn, I'm so tired. And she's like, when was the last time you rested? I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, you've got to rest now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's kind of like I had to get permission to rest in a way. And then I also realized, like over the last few years, the same kind of thing. And now really sifting into the patterns behind it. It's been all because of sense of abandonment as a child, or like not having a lot of attention as a child, and then having to be perfect and a performer and all this stuff to gain that love or that recognition of I exist somewhere somehow. And so I think it's really, really interesting. I mean, it'll be different for you, I'm sure, but looking at where does the workaholism come from? And so now I actually have like a routine. It's a bit different now that all systems are go and packing house and all that, but I changed my routine so that I only do session work like certain days of the week. I only start like at 11. I actually start my day at 11 because I meditate and I chill and I find some sort of calmness in my life before starting all that stuff. Because otherwise, if I was left to my own devices without consciousness, I would be working, from I used to actually work from like the moment my daughter was at school all the way till like midnight or past midnight, and then I'd just be like on it all the time, and I don't do that anymore. But it was all because of these childhood patterns, and that's what I'm talking about. Processing emotion is really getting to the bottom of these limiting beliefs, or the really interesting ones that come up in kinesiology sessions with people is that we have these sort of dichotomies. It's like, I can't have this if I have that. So like if I, for example, if I am visible, I won't have love. So there was a friend of mine I worked closely with, and he always knew he was gay from a very young age, but he didn't tell anyone, and it was all very scary. But he also felt that if he was visible, as in himself, and people know he's gay, then he won't have love or friendship anymore. And then later on, as he was in business and he wanted to be like we were in a coaching program together, and he was teaching others about management coaching, like business coaching. And then he saw what I did, and he was like, I'm supposed to be doing that, what Sarah's doing, like being a healer and the shaman and all this stuff. And when we worked on it, we realized that the whole pattern was, if I'm visible, I can't have love. So he would lose community, family, he would lose respect, he would lose all sorts of, it's not even rational, but the sensation of love in his body would not exist if he was visible as a healer. So clearing that pattern meant now he's making a lot of money as a healer right now, which I'm really pleased that we unlocked that. And then people, working with so many different people in that way, we really do have some strange things that come, like I can't travel and have freedom, or I can't expand my business and have freedom. So there's like blocking. The physical body is almost sabotaging and blocking every attempt, putting the website up, or making the flyer, or doing the talk, or doing the thing, because the body is going like, if he does this, he will never have freedom again, So it's kind of like working with it's like working deep into the nervous system, and the reflexes in the body of the flight, fright, freeze responses, and finding what's that trigger, what's going on, why can't you move forward, why can't you unlock this, why can't you take the steps you've been looking to take. And that's what I think I mean with processing emotion, is looking at, there's lots of other things I want to say, but that's like a really important thing that's been coming up, because sometimes this stuff is like inherited. It's like an ancestral pattern. So I think like a month ago, for some reason, all my clients, we were doing ancestral clearing stuff for all manner of things. And I think over the week, I cleared, if I added all the generations of ancestral patterns, I think it was like 189 years of ancestral patterns were cleared out of like 6 or 7 clients. And so with one, it was like 21 generations of guilt and shame, stuff to do with like there was Protestant Catholic stuff going on, I don't know what, but like some weird religious thing happening that was stuck in the system. And so this lady, she's not even religious, but she has like this uncontrollable fear, guilt, shame around all sorts of things in her life, and she never understood why. And it was deep in her like ancestral, in her cells, like, or DNA, like playing out as a pattern. So like learning how, like working with people in that way has been excellent. And having an aura transformation means that everything you're doing, healing work or processing or clearing, all that stuff, it's like basically the same as you would have to do without an aura transformation, but you've got like an extra leg up, you know, like it's faster, it's speedier. And then like I remember working with a woman that did, you know, like one-to-one yoga, so they're helping you stretch into poses and stuff like that. And she was working with a lot of my clients after an aura transformation, and she was saying it was remarkable that people with, you know, like stuck hips or certain things that were, you know, like a blockage in the body, that they were releasing within 2 weeks rather than 6. So there's like it's acceleration. It's not like the magic wand that will clear all your processes. I mean, it can for some people be like very magical in that it clears a lot, but it's never over. I'm sorry. Because our humanity, we are like a cell amongst a larger picture of humanity and history, and we're not just processing our family stuff and our ancestral stuff. We're processing like the whole existence of our species and what we're doing to each other. So yeah, the end is not in sight. Shit. Sorry. And I thought I had nothing to say tonight. It's always the same. Processing the nervous system. There's one more anecdote about that, because last week, with all the clients, it comes in waves and patterns, and everyone's sort of in the same thing, including me. And last week, working with people I've been working with for a number of months, we got deeper and deeper, and it was all to do with very early, like 0 to 1 years old patterns that had been held in the nervous system again. So that's when, if anyone did read my post about leaving, I talk about this isolation, Groundhog Day feeling that comes sometimes, and it's not depression. It's just more like, sometimes it might only last 10 minutes, but it's enough to be like, oh no. And I worked with a kinesiologist on me, and it came up as something like when I was 8 months old or something like that. Something happened. We don't know. Doesn't matter what it was, but something happened that caused like a shock or a feeling like that no one's there, no one's coming to the cot, you know, that kind of isolation feeling. And it's sort of at that age, you can't understand what's actually happening. And there's a real survival thing of like, well, something has to look after me, or if nothing's coming, this is doom. And so the way she explained it to me was like amazing, because she described exactly what happens to me when I'm lying there. Whereas I think that that's happening to me now. I think I'm having a doomy, isolated moment and everything's a bit shit. But actually, it's just my body repeating a pattern that was imprinted when I was 8 months old as a child. And what happens when people, as a baby, and when people are like little babies, and something like shocks or scares a baby, or maybe the terror of someone not coming, or whatever it might be. You know, you've heard babies scream. They're in terror sometimes. And when that happens, when it imprints, that shock trauma imprints in the baby, it affects their reflexes in their learning development stages, so that they can actually miss a stage. So chiropractors and people like that do cranial work, they're working with reflexes or things that might have happened at that very early stages, and then you're missing a development. And the one that it affected me was something to do with lifting my head up and down, like on all four type, you know, being on all fours and lifting my head up and down. Like I missed something like at that stage of development, and that's what's been slowly looping in my system. And then as we went towards clearing it, it hasn't happened since, but it's still like only a week or so ago that we worked on it. But now reflecting back as a teenager, I remember feeling that, like feeling the similar emotions in a different way. And so then you start seeing that it's played in your life over and over again. And I think that when something like that happens at a very early development stage, you can create so many coping mechanisms and survival mechanisms and beliefs like those. Okay, well, I'll never be visible ever again, because I might never have love again if I do that. So you create all these like walls and stuff. And when I was at the Joe Dispenza thing in Cancun, I basically unraveled layers of stuff through the work that was happening there. And I saw myself as a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, and I literally put walls around me that made me feel isolated from tribe or from home or from feeling from that age on. And it's played out in my relationships and my community and in different places I've lived in different ways, but again and again, the same thing. So that is it's nothing to be ashamed of or to chastise or to feel like I failed. It's just compassion that as a 3-year-old, I thought something really bad was happening. I don't even think anything really bad happened, but I created coping mechanisms at that stage. So I think the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, that's what I meant by refining. Like it's getting to the point where we're dealing with all the current stuff, you know, the emotional stuff that's real, like right now, like stuff with your children or stuff with work and blah. Then you're going back, and then it's all the ancestral stuff, and then you end up back as a baby, and then who knows what happens after that. I'll let you know. So it's just fascinating. I get all fascinated about all the facets of that. Yeah. So, Maiken, do you want to say where you're at, how you experienced aura transformation?
Okay. Yeah. I got my aura transformation, I think maybe 13 years ago or something. Yeah, from Annie. But it's taking me, I don't feel like things just happen like that. And it's been like a slow development for me. But I was also, I'm also very challenged, I will say. Like from my starting point when I got my aura transformation, and I still am. And I came from, I was very traumatized as a child and teenager growing up. So I feel like actually today I realized that I came back and I'm still in something. I feel like I have my consciousness about it, but I don't really know what to do so much with it. So maybe you have some tools today. But I feel like I connect with a part of me that don't really want to change and is very fearful. And also think like when you talk about visible?
Visibility.
Huh? Yes, visibility. I know that I have an inner child that really thinks and believes that people are not nice. The world is not a good place. So I don't want to be visible. That's part of my pattern, definitely. I still have a lot to work with, and I also am a bit limited by a physical condition in my body that I might be born with, or it has been created during my teenage years. And I have I'm dealing with pains and tiredness in my body and tensions from some kind of sacralization in my lower back, and has created like now I have a problem with my jaw because of that, and it creates so I have to work a lot with coming out and releasing pain and tension and trying to get back into the relaxing nervous system and not be in this big, and that's how it is if you live with chronic pain. You have to deal with that, so yeah. And so financially I didn't have the money to actually support myself in a way that I could move a little faster ahead, I think, to get some help and to work with the other traumas and things like that. So, but I'm doing my best, and yeah, that's all I can do.
And so what is it that you want to be, or that you're not being visible with? Are you talking about something like work you do, or are you talking about just...
Well, I think I have always been, but I'm much more visible now. Definitely, I'm much more authentic now. But I definitely have been kind of trapped in wanting to be invisible and be, because of fear, and not being in my body and not breathing appropriately. Mm-hmm. Some kind of shock stage, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that aura transformation improved, or like almost heightened, or made it worse?
Both, probably. I mean, it strengthened me, definitely, but it's also maybe I don't think it made it worse, definitely not. But of course, I don't know how to put it with words, but it doesn't make it worse because it helped me to kind of at least be where I am today, and that's definitely a different place than where I was before. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's not been like an easy, quick fix for me at all. No, but it's okay. I mean, like all the things you're talking about, the inner journey and healing work, it's also fascinating for me, and I feel passion for that as well, and I like it. So, and it's interesting for me, and it's, I know it's very much needed in my family, how do you say it, ancestral line. Yeah. So I feel like, so I'm here for a reason, right? Yeah.
Yes, any work you do, it will always affect directly the direct family that are in touch with you, but beyond, I'm sure.
Yeah. Some months ago, I actually felt like I felt really like pressured with family life, and so I felt like I would have loved to work with you at that time where you were working with the people working with ancestral things, because I actually was in the same, but I just wasn't in the working sessions with you, for example, but I did experience very I was very challenged from different family members. So yeah, but it's also been an interesting process for me, because I feel like I'm in a place now than I was like some month ago, or half a year ago, or a year ago, where I have more compassion and empathy with my family members, and
hopefully yourself.
And with myself, definitely, yes. A lot more compassion and consciousness, and like awareness and understanding. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing. I mean, it sounds like you've had like a tough time.
Yeah.
is that way, and it's really I really appreciate that you show up every month here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think so some of the tools that I brought up are more practical, like things you can actually do. Oh, bless you.
Yeah. It's okay.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Releases welcome. We don't often get a chance to talk on here, and I think we'll do it more often. But whilst I'm talking, Annalie, if you'd like to write anything about where you are, and then I'll keep talking right now. So I think would you rather I just kind of talk into the whole topic, Maiken, rather than?
No, you do. Feel free. I'm fine. This is just like pain and sorrow, and it's releasement. And because when you mirror something to me, it's just like, okay, it came out. It's perfect. I'm good.
No, and I think something I wanted to talk about with processing emotion is that there's something about life that is this balance and play in between suffering and pain and joy, like just coming into the world as a baby. It's not like, oh, this is comfortable for mother or child. It's pretty like, but there's pain involved. But then the most beautiful thing happens, the first breath, and then the first step, the first walk, the first smile, and all of that. And there's the sacrifice that the mum goes through. But then there's, the child having to have, be a teenager and have parents, So it's like always this interplay. Every time you fall in love, you might have heartbreak. There's this real weaving and webbing of the both. And I think if there was somehow something that's helped me is this having an appreciation of holding both. So instead, when processing emotion, how do we react when we experience despair or pain or anger or loss? The choice we have is like, how do we react? And that's where you can refine your process. Is how do you run away and like drink alcohol or party or work hard, so you can avoid your emotions and not feel them and not be in them? Or do you go, okay, I'm gonna feel them? Because what has happened, I would say ancestrally, or like in our species or our parents, is that you stiff up. Certainly in England is the stiff upper lip, and just like Switzerland's very much like that. Oh, we're fine. Everything's fine. And I don't think I can live there because people are just not emotional enough in Switzerland. But so I think that we've shied away from feeling the emotions, and it's like the analogy, some of you might have heard me talk about it, is the mermaid. That if you never go deep into your shadow waters where the water is dark, deep, and there's stuff you don't know what's down there, but if you can like actually swim to the bottom when you see that, okay, I'm really shallow swimming, or things have got stagnant, or I'm doing the same thing again and again, if you can really delve in and dive in to your emotional content and stuff, and lean in to pain and anger and suffering that we experience, or the heartbreak, whatever it is, the abandonment, the isolation, if we can really drop in to it and dive like a mermaid or a seal, like right down to the bottom of that emotional, the bedrock of our emotions, that's where we can like unload the baggage or explore it and see what that landscape looks like. And that's when I see it as we turn those wounds into pearls, or we find the treasure at the bottom of the sea. And that's what happens, I think, over time. Is all pains I seem to have experienced a lot of very uncomfortable, distressing situations in and not so much maybe, I suppose as a child it wasn't a bad childhood, but I experienced distress. But as a young woman, I was doing loads of what it appears quite stupid stuff, and ended up in all sorts of situations. And all of those things that were awful at the time have become the wisdom, or the tools, or the magic, or the enchantment, or the transforming that pain into wisdom has been like everything. It's made me who I am, and I feel like I've been able to alchemize is the word I'm looking for. I think alchemize the difficult stuff into, I don't know if it's a positive experience, but basically you turn everything into love the best you can. So whether it was like hating someone or blaming someone, it was all their fault, they did this to me, or they abandoned me, or they rejected me, and it's like pointing the finger. And that's actually a perspective that I think a lot of our family members might take. You know, that's like the norm. That's what they do on the news and in every movie. I will seek revenge. You know, like almost every movie is like some sort of revenge quest, which is like, no, what are you doing? You know, and I think, oh, I just got overexcited, and then I can't remember what I was saying. Like in our modern culture, so in the old days we would blame and shame and point the finger, and people still do that. I say old world because it's like the old aura way. And I think what's happening is that if you can see it in your families, I suppose, if you don't process emotion, then you end up transferring anger onto others. So people with road rage, or people that lose their temper, or people that if you get really frustrated, or if you have a bad day at the office and then you shout at your partner because they dropped something, you know, or didn't do something, that is you not processing emotion, because you've not taken the time to go, I've had a really bad day, I didn't really enjoy that. How can I change how I respond to it so that I'm not going crazy? How can I untangle my energy from those people so I'm not taking it home with me? And then be able to be present with whoever's in front of me and not chuck my garbage on them. And it happens all the time. I think you can see it all the time with people. And that's what processing emotion is doing, is the opposite of that. It's like not pointing the finger. And then in terms, I think I've said all that. I've got so many bits of paper I've written stuff on. I wanted to share actually about the 3 people that aren't here that I've been speaking to over the last while. One of them is actually going to watch the replay, so I wanted to actually answer her question in this way. And what's happened with her is that she had her aura transformation at an aura mediator course in November. And what's happened is, I think it was like quite pleasant to start with, and then there's been a big physical reaction in the terms of like a skin condition that she had before that has flared up at different times in her life. And that's very similar. When she first opened Balance on All Levels, she felt it was like, oh my God, Annie Senov had the same thing I had. You know, and I don't know if you know Annie Senov's story, that she had this thing called psoriatic eczema or asthmatic eczema or something, but basically it was like her energy protection was so weak or gone that she couldn't even hold her own frequency in her physical body. So she, you know, it was almost like a life and death situation that she needs to have an aura transformation to give her the protection to hold her spirit energy, her consciousness within like a boundary of her body, basically. So in a way, her skin was like almost falling off Annie Senov's story. And, you know, she would have to have all this cortisone and all this stuff before the aura transformation. So then when she created aura transformation, things got much better, and she was much, you know, there was like, people were shocked at how well she looked compared to, you know, how bad she looked before. But then she had another bout of this skin condition came after her aura transformation, so during her crystallization. And at the time it was probably, I imagine, quite confusing, because it's like she's done this process, she has she has protection, and then now this thing is happening again. And in the Crystal Human books 1 and 2, there are different anecdotes of people that are kind of like, you know, Annie didn't just put positive stories. There's a lot of case studies in the book. So she didn't just put positive stories. I don't know who's read the book in here. Has anyone? Show of hands. Crystal Human Part 1 and 2. Yeah. So there's not only positive stories in there, and there are people that, you know, had like some real physical, what would you call it? Like crisis, I suppose, or things got worse before they got better. But once the kind of crystallization process has moved on and through, then they're so much better than they ever were before. So, but it is like rough in the middle. And I think this lady is actually having a rough time. She's probably feeling, I imagine, you know, there's that like, oh, what have I done? You know, I wish I hadn't done this, or, you know, that all that kind of stuff. Like I've made it worse. And I just wanted to reassure her that people process in very different ways. And the crystallization process is, we're not actually just having like you know, we're not having just a spiritual transformation or a consciousness expansion. It's actually a very physical thing. Like you look at my before and after pictures, I look like this, my skin's different, my eyes are different, even my bone structure looks different. And so it's a very physical process. And what's happening, I think, with her is that as she integrates her spirit energy in her body, not only is that raising like fire, the crystal energy is like a fire platform, is raising fire in her system, but it's also burning away lots of old, whether it's ancestral stuff, emotional stuff, the physical imbalance that was there in the first place to have the skin condition, like autoimmune thing. So it's actually like it's probably accelerating through some sort of natural healing of that particular ailment. So it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. So I'm like, I feel really sorry that she's actually experiencing that, but I think it's actually just part of the process of her crystallizing, and it's just happening to her in a very physical, it's demonstrating itself as very physical. So when we do the balancing, that is going to really help in her really kind of like evening. So let's say, you got your aura, and instead of trying to pull all your spirit energy through like two little holes, it's that you're trying to pull it throughout the entire of the aura. And that can happen a lot with people that are having a very rapid sort of transformation at the beginning, is that when you put your hands on the person, it feels like a kind of like a wobble, like a whoa. And that, to me, usually I identify that as it's happening too fast almost, and you want to kind of even out the process, and you want it to come in like gradually, not too fast, and evenly. And so it would be beneficial to have a balancing, but also just doing your own self-balancing, which we're going to go through in a bit. And that's probably going to help just, and not, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily slow it down completely, but just even it out. And then you can also, when things are going too fast or not fast enough, you can actually demand or command your aura or your higher self, like, that's it now. Like, stop processing emotion all over my workplace. Like, I want to process emotion when I'm at home. Or like, can we just sleep when we're in bed? Like, I really need to have a talking to with myself later, because I've only slept like 3 hours or something for the last 2 weeks here and there. Like, so I'm like, I'm ready to have words now. But you can just try and be firm and take a real stand, like have an energetic response to what you don't want or want more of, that is stronger than what is holding it back or that's making it go too fast. Your willpower and determination or standpoint needs to be stronger than the thing that is running you. So that's where I find I've had to learn not everyone has that or doesn't use it in the same way. I was brought up maybe to use my willpower in a really strong way, or my dad has a lot of willpower or something. And then it's been a shock to find out that other people don't have that kind of, rah about where they want to go with stuff. I mean, it can be a pain in the ass too, because then you end up, I don't know, traveling around the whole world without a house. And then going like, how did that happen? So I don't know. I'm still exploring around willpower and what that's all about, but I think that you can have a degree of control over your process not being harmful to you, I think. And then the other two that recently had their aura transformation. So one is a friend of mine that also had her, they all had their AT at the aura mediator course actually, and she ended up having an amazing, I was getting texts like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, so much energy. Wow, getting so much done. Amazing, amazing. And the next thing I know, I'm in hospital. I'm in A&E. I'm like, what? And they're like, they thought I had a heart attack. And then I was like, what? And then they think I have a virus. And so she didn't have a heart attack. And there was possibly a virus that probably affected the pericardium lining, or, like made it feel like palpitations and stuff. And she was just like sleeping a lot. But in her life, she has a lot of stories around armoring the heart or giving too much of the heart, a lot of heart stuff. And again, that's like around an emotional relating pattern in life. But she's such like a go-getter and never stops and is running around all the time, that she wouldn't have sat and processed that stuff after her aura transformation. So it's almost like her body was like, right, that's it, we're just going to shut the whole game down here, because she's not going to process any of this. And I think she processed most of it asleep. And then when she kind of came through the other side, she was like, right, I'm going to go back to work now. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going back to work. Like, you've been in hospital for like a week and you can't go to work the minute you feel better. And it was just like her realizing that it's her body has been trying to show her how to slow down. And then also that she wasn't going to take the time to process the way that I might have, which would have been like sifting through this emotional content. So one lady is going through like a physical healing crisis. This one had all sorts of like also physical, but stuff around the heart, because in the aura transformation, your heart's expanding in its capacity and its ability to forgive or let go and all that. And if it's all suddenly very real, like, okay, the heart's opening and it's all this content that's going to have to be processed. It can't stay there like that, or it's just very exposed. And it probably made her feel very exposed in some way. I don't know. So the virus or the experience gave her time to actually look and reflect on all of that content. So people experience very strange things after an aura transformation, but it comes in the way that your body or mind or consciousness will eventually understand, hopefully. And I don't think you can get a bigger wake-up call than ending up in A&E, you know, on your 4th date with someone. So, and then another one had a very, also just some sort of set of what's the word I'm looking for, symptoms, you know, like it felt, was it a bladder infection, was it a this infection, was it a that, you know, like all sorts of stuff. No one knows what it is, giving her antibiotics, blah blah. She feels she's like sleeping on the floor in the living room by the fire over Christmas, you know, she was just useless. And that was just like a few weeks after her aura transformation as well. So, and she's not an emotional processor at all. She's never really looked at that emotional stuff. She's very sweet and very loving and pushes herself really hard, but never looked at all that stuff. So for her, it had to knock her out as well. So it looks like at the moment, well, the pattern that is emerging is that if you're not an emotional processor, you might end up being a physical processor. So maybe Mike and you have partly a physical processing of emotional content, possibly.
Can I say, you know what? I actually love like moving my body and dancing and this and that, but I have a physical condition that I can't. And it's very frustrating for me, actually. I have to I have to limit myself all the time, because if I don't listen to my limits of my body, I will get simply get too much tension and too much pain, you know. So I have to like, it's very frustrating for me, because I feel like I have all this energy and all this power of energy, and I'm someone who loves to dance and love to I really feel like it's difficult for me to live my life in this body. But when you talk, Sarah, then I think like, okay, so there's something here I need to balance and learn from it. I don't know what, but I'm someone actually, I mean, I actually feel like I have this fire energy that can actually feel very like passion and be interested in many things in life. And sometimes that's like almost too much. So I don't know what's to focus my energy on and what to really focus my life on, because you can't do everything at once and you can't do everything in one lifetime. And then I have this body which is just really can't sit for long, can't carry too heavy things, can't do this, you know, there's just so much I have to regulate, so that at least that, and then I have to look after my body, not in the way that I feel like I really can like matches my energy, but that I have to do it in a different way. Like it's just I still have a hard time to, not a hard time, but I still haven't found my way in all this. I feel like,
I think it'd be really worth, I know you might have, did you watch the Joe Dispenza thing I did?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, so there's his book. It's called Becoming Supernatural, or something supernatural. And I think that, I mean, I haven't read it, but I went and did it. And I think apparently people that have read the book said a lot of what I talked about is in the book. So it might, be good to read. But he really deals more in the sense of how to get your body to vibrate at a different level and to not live in the past. So to get the whole of you into like a healing spiral in the right direction. And there's a guy I met that I'm still in contact with. He was in my team, and he fell off a balcony and he broke 5 vertebrae, so he couldn't walk. He was told that he's never going to walk again. And he was like, that is not happening. And that's what actually happened to, the reason why he was there is because Joe Dispenza started all his journey because he broke even more vertebrae, like almost all of them or something. And he was also going to be paralyzed. And he created, the way he teaches you is to basically, he calls it dimensionalize a future, is to, so that you live your mind, your emotions, everything is going to live in the future that you actually want, where you're moving around, you're picking stuff up, you're dancing, you're living in like the world where your spine is intact, and this guy I met, he actually rebuilt 5 vertebrae through these meditations. And there were people that were in wheelchairs and standing up. There was a video of a boy that severely born with like really short legs and very short arms. I don't even know what the PC word is to describe what he had, but basically there's a video of him doing these walking meditations that he does, and just through the putting himself in a future where he can do those things, the body starts doing it. Like the body has to follow where the consciousness and the energy is. So, and then something really interesting, and I'm not saying that this is what is around for you, but, and this was very interesting on processing for myself, for example, was realizing that we have emotional addictions. We are addicted to certain emotions that go round and round, and if we don't have that fix, we create something to get into that zone so that we're doing it again, because our body's like, oh, there's the food that I need to sustain this sense of nervousness and worry and frustration, because that's like the emotions I'm addicted to. And then I couldn't believe the ones that came up for me. I was like, me? Like I'm not worried, but my body thrived on things to like kind of freak out about, even little tiny things. And then once you identify it, like the awareness and the witnessing, you're like, okay, I don't want to do that. But this whole change in suddenly my life like that is all happening because of these meditations. I'm doing them every morning, and I'm seeing it makes you take action in a different way, I guess, and then opportunities open up in different ways. And meditation is free, so so it's doable. But I mean, I have the book here. I'll show it to you.
Just to add, if you go on to Joe Dispenza's website, you can purchase the meditations that he guides on there as well. And both Becoming Supernatural and Breaking the Habit of Being You is also really good.
I tried reading the placebo. I'm not much of a book reader at the moment, but the placebo one I didn't get. I was maybe not ready to read it or something, but
right.
I've heard this one's good.
It's really good. I'm like 3/4 of the way through that one.
Yeah, but the thing is reading a book is all good, but it's actually doing it.
Well, I also downloaded the meditations and stuff, so I'm doing a lot of the energy alignment and aligning the energy centers.
Learning to bring the cerebrospinal fluid up into the pineal gland.
Yes, and
yeah, doing
yes.
that. Which is basically because the magic of the coherence healing that Joe Dispenza does is that and the magic of, even with working with aura transformation, is if your energy field is not coherent, if there's like a a break in it, or like distortion or whatever, or if it's in a low vibration state, then the body takes that on and then starts behaving in that way according to the energy field. So his theory, or the way he does it, is he gets all of us in a certain state when we're in coherence, and then placing our hands on the energy field of the person that's not in coherence. And then as the energy field fixes itself, becomes right again, then you see the body's going like, because it's the body has to match the energy field. So it's very interesting. The whole thing is super fascinating, and the potential I can see I don't know what I'll be doing in 20 years time, but I imagine it will be roomfuls of people and us going into a cross between crystal energy and brain and heart coherence magic or something.
So Sarah, those meditations you're doing every morning is the one from his website, or what?
So actually, because I went to one of his advanced workshops.
Yeah.
I have access to a different shop where there's even more ones on there. And me and a couple of friends, we bought the ones that went with me. We bought like as many as we could, and we get together and do them. But the ones that you can get that are available on the normal shop, they're still very good. It's just not the advanced stuff that we did. But I had to do the progressive workshop, which is like 23 hours of content of his, like, his starter workshop. And there's like 5 or 6 of the meditations in there. So I don't think it makes sense to buy the progressive workshop and you get access to those meditations, like 5 or 6, and they go from like a good range. But I think it's basically every single day you're training your mind and your emotions and your body to be in a future you actually want to be in. But it's like, that's what mind sculpting is about. Mind sculpting is a word that was when I first started working with people outside of doing aura transformations, was really around mind sculpting and consciousness sculpting. Is moment by moment, every single moment of time, drip, 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 is being conscious and aware and witnessing yourself and what you're doing and how you're doing it. And maybe even witnessing and observing other people rather than reacting in that moment. And every moment is going, okay, so if this is me in a state of love and okayness and I feel calm and not stressed, so what's all this stuff happening that I'm doing that doesn't create that? What am I doing to my body when my mind is going, he did this to me and she did that to me and I'm so hurt and blah, blah, blah. Like, what am I doing to my body? What's happening to my body doing that? You end up being thrown around like a rag doll, and, like being, you're hitting the walls and hitting the floor. And so I think before my aura transformation, it was 9 months of every moment of every day deciding to be someone different. And it was not beating myself up for getting it wrong, and really having trying to just witness all the patterns that were hurting me, and then moment by moment watching myself do it again and go like, I've done it again, but that's okay. And it's every moment when you witness yourself like that, it's an opportunity rather than a failure, an opportunity to actually get up faster than the last time. And that's one of the tools I was going to share, is this Vito Mucci. I mean, I don't follow him so much anymore, but when I first started out, a lot of all this processing emotion stuff and the tools I'm going to talk about now quickly are from Vito Mucci's works. You can add him on Facebook. He writes a lot all the time. I don't know if, Dustin, have you heard of him? Vito Mucci? I'll write his name down. And I haven't forgotten to read what Annalise wrote. I'm just going to do that. I'll do it now.
But how did you work with this guy?
Oh, Vito, he's like an amazing dude that's always on hand for everybody. And like he has question sessions once or twice a week publicly, and you can even write to him privately and just be like, oh, what's going on? So with all my, I'm awakening massively. I'm actually working with people, and then there's all my own personal stuff. And he was like my coach, guide, friend, and he you know, he does charge to work with him on Patreon, but most of his content and his, you know, you can read his book and all that kind of thing. But he is someone that has PTSD. He's bipolar, but he was brought up by shamans. Like his mum's a shaman and a healer, and so he had like every opportunity in the world to not be a post-traumatic stress bipolar person, but he is. And then he was also an alcoholic and an addict on that level. But then he has written and worked, you know, so he still has all those labels, if you like, but he has created content and books that are very much like 100 ways to change your habits and your behaviors and your relationships to the world every moment of the day. These little tools, and he explains them like in a very nice way, so that it's like kind of easy to get. Like it's not some psychological, psychodynamic kind of felt sense language that no one understands. It's actually very practical.
Did you go to some of his like workshops, or how did you?
He's just on Facebook. He's just like, you just add him on Facebook. I put his name. You just add him, and then you can read his stuff, and you can join in and message him, and you know, you can pay a little bit on Patreon and get him to do clears, but it wouldn't be what Annie Senov would recommend because it's like distant healing stuff. But that's up to you to discern what works for you. But so some of the stuff, like not all of this is his. I'm gonna go through them in a sec. I just want to read what Annalie wrote. So Annalie says that she did her AT in 2011. I was very, very sick when finding AT, burnt out. Been working a lot and taking care of my child, working 26 hours a day. Okay. The child was also very sick. I wasn't supposed to ever work again because my body was so sick from stress. After my AT, everything changed. It wasn't a quick fix, but it gave me the power to start over and take care of me and allow me to be me. So slowly but surely I recovered. And since 2012, I work as an aura mediator. Oh, beautiful. For me, the new aura was the most important because I had none left at all, but the absolutely best feeling after my AT was the feeling welcome home to myself. When I was in this condition, Mike, I lay down and pretended I was dancing, training, or whatever I wanted to do as a mindset practice. Yeah, that's a really good point, because Joe Dispenza has walking meditations, and I had one on my phone, and I'm in an airplane for 7 hours, and so I listened to all the walking meditations on the plane, and it was as effective imagining that I'm walking during the meditation as it was sitting in an airplane. And this whole family, Hindu family next to me, were all asking me, what kind of meditation was this? Because I must have been like, in the airplane. But Annalie, thank you for sharing, because that really made me feel, it triggered something of when we're not being our true selves and when we're not sharing how we really feel. And maybe we were treated in such a way as children where we don't even know what we're supposed to feel anymore, and it's all jumbled up. We get more and more distorted, like what we emit into the world, it's not coming out. So it's almost like destroying our own bodies because we're not able to shine the way we want to, and maybe never were able to. And it's like it's almost like part of our duties to pull away all the masks and the layers and just be able to be ourselves, whatever that means. Thank you. I'll quickly go through some of the tools I wrote down, because I think I've pretty much talked about everything else. Yep. So the one we've talked about before is it's like feeling into the pain, like being the mermaid, going right into it, leaning in to whatever's coming up rather than running away or trying to cover it up or do something else or avoid it by, I don't know, going out with friends again or that kind of thing. And really thank it for showing up and be like, what are you trying to show me and teach me? Because if our reaction is frustration, then we're actually doing whatever life is trying to show us. We're kind of doing it a disservice. We're like saying, well, I don't have time for this. It's taking too long, rather than being in real surrender to what is this trying to show me? And if you can ask yourself what a pain or a discomfort or a loss is trying to show you, it's usually something about coming back to love yourself. I boil it down to almost everything is pouring the love back in. Then there's, well, when you go into it, you can also then ask, when you get to the crux of it. So, Dustin said about there's like a deep root to an old pattern. When you get to the bottom of it, you can actually really ask your consciousness, like, okay, it's really time for me to let that go. And you can use the balancing tool, like, I'm sending this energy back. You can feel it lift off of you. And that's what I did before my AT for like 9 months, because I was almost I was a destroyed human. And on most levels, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and every single day I was choosing a set of emotions that were real that day, like shame or guilt or anger or whatever, and then really going into it, like, where is it in my body? What is it doing there? What is it trying to show me? Is it time for it to go? And sometimes it was, and sometimes it wasn't. And if it wasn't, I would go back to it again the following week or the following day, until I really got to the bottom of each thing and was able to turn it into gold, into the alchemy of loving myself again, because I got to the point where I wasn't loving myself, or didn't feel worthy of love, which then means you attract all the wrong people in your life. Another cool one that's usually very useful around family members, but is being in the helicopter. So when you're sat maybe with a lot of emotionally people that maybe trigger you normally, or that kind of thing, you can really zoom out, like take a helicopter and really observe the dynamics going on, rather than being in it and triggered and like, just take off and kind of have a look around. And then from that perspective, with the wider heart space, or if you're trying to work with empathy, like compassion and forgiveness, you can actually see your own story and their own stories. If you're in it, in your own triggers or in theirs, then it's very hard to see that they're not trying to hurt you, or that you're not, that they're annoying you and all that kind of thing. If you rise out and look at the whole dynamic, and then also notice that, their mums and dads probably treated them in a certain way, and then their mums and dads probably treated them in a certain way, or in their life experience. So like, it worked really well with an ex-partner, because I was so hurt by the whole thing, that when I did this exercise, for the first time I saw that he was actually just a spiritual being in a body that was lost in his own way and was trying to learn stuff in his own way. None of it was actually intended to hurt me, even if it did. So I was able to find forgiveness and compassion for different people in my life by using the helicopter, which is having a very different perspective and overview of the situation. And as well, it means you can witness yourself, like, what perspective am I looking at these people through, and really owning the spectacles that you're looking at the world through. Like, what do you have, like, rose tint, everything's jolly and lovely and nice, or is it like everything's shit? And that would be the perspective that you're choosing to watch the world with. There's a video I did somewhere in my Facebook lives called The Place of Pity and the Place of No Concern. So maybe you should maybe I'll link it I'll put it in the Crystal Gathering. Wait, let me write it on my hand diary somewhere, because I'll forget or not. No pen. The Place of Pity and the Place of No Concern is basically another refining of your perspective, is that it's about checking in with yourself. Like, maybe do it for a week or two just to see where you're at. Are you being in the place of victim, or everything's not, nothing ever works for me, or I'm a victim of this, or complaining, or that kind of place of pity? Yeah, so the more you're in that place, the harder it is to change your vibration, or to see the opportunity or the love or the joy in everything. But then there's the other place. So the exercise would be to jump. I sometimes say it's like a frog jumping from one lily pad to the next. So you're jumping from the place of pity. Every time you catch yourself, you go, oops, and then jump onto the place of no concern, which is a bit like jumping from victim consciousness to cosmic consciousness, where you are like a speck of dust in the infinite vast space of everything, and then just going like, okay, that really doesn't matter, like that, what I was just feeling sorry for myself about, doesn't it's not really worth worrying about. And then so you start training your mind and your body to not attach to that emotional addiction, to the place of pity. So that's kind of what, it's just like a little game to play with yourself, really, to catch yourself doing it again and again. And me and my daughter used to do it it stopped working when she hit like 9, 10, but for a long time we really loved having the no moaning game, and then sharing with each other like, hey, you're moaning about that, and I would do it too, you know, and we'd catch each other out, and then it would be really nice because we had a moan-free zone. But then she used to get so frustrated with all her friends that used to moan all the time about everything, you know. It's very British. So yeah, it's a fun game to play. Then there's the Vito Amici type thing, which is the opportunity consciousness. It's seeing everything as an opportunity to grow or to learn from. So rather than going like, oh shit, I messed up again or something like that, it's like, okay, I'm going to find the opportunities in this. So it's very simple, but it's another game to play with yourself. It's to catch yourself doing it. So the work is really, the mind is a muscle at the end of the day. I see the mind as a muscle. It's a set of algorithms that have been built up over time and from habitual repetition. And every time you do something more than once or twice, you're creating synapses and neural pathways. So it's about creating new ones and different ones. Yeah, and it's also opportunities just to get better at it each time rather than seeing it as a failure, which I kind of mentioned before. And then the final one that was, I think it's the final, oh no, there's a few more, is what Vito calls conscious validation. So he uses the example once of he's driving somewhere and he spills his drink all down his white shirt, and his normal reaction would be like, you know, you idiot, you know, like get really cross with himself for doing it. And then, no, you know, I wish I'd not worn this one. You know, like, I don't know, blame, shame, anger, all this not very useful stuff. So he used the example is that if he was using the tool conscious validation, is that you see the emotion emerge or the reaction come out, or the thoughts come in. It depends how you see your consciousness. And at each moment you go, is this a useful one or is this not a useful one? If it's not useful, like you can imagine ripping it up like bits of paper and throwing it away. If it's a useful thought, like, oh, it's okay, I actually have a shirt in the back, or haha, isn't that funny, you're always so clumsy, or, you know, like, just it's about what's the word? It's like being in a computer game and training the computer game like to behave in a certain way. So basically what happens is that if every time you would have normally been angry or got upset or frustrated with yourself, if you start saying to your brain, this is a useful one, actually, I'll keep this one, thank you very much, brain, that was a very kind way to react to this. So you're validating it, you're going, this is good, I enjoy it. So the mind's like, she thinks this is good, we'll keep this, we'll keep them coming. But if eventually you go, no, thank you very much, that is not useful thoughts for me, and the more you do that, the brain's like, oh, she doesn't want those ones, she wants those ones. So it's conscious validation of your thought processes and your reactions. So it's again a bit boring because you have to keep doing it again and again until the brain's like, oh, we're doing something different, because it's a bit clunky, the brain, really. And it can be very lazy, you know, it just runs off and does its own thing if you don't kind of, you know, like taking a stallion and trying to rein it in and tame a stallion. It's sort of like the emotional body and the mental body is like running away with its own wild, lazy, learned behavior. And it's up to us to go, I don't like that. I don't actually like how that makes me feel or what is happening to me. And to ride it. It's the same with the ancestral stuff I was talking about. I have this like ancestral, like my ancestral willpower pattern is 23 generations old. It's not something I necessarily need to get rid of, but if I don't ride it, it pushes me, and then I feel exhausted and burnt out, and like I'm I'm at mercy to service to the world without any of my own life. So I have to remember, like I have to consciously go like, hold up, I will do it, but I'm going to ride this thing. I'm not going to let it just push me across the universe, because it's not healthy. So it's kind of like How to Train Your Dragon or something. On many levels. Let me just see, is there any more? Yeah, and a nice way of seeing it all is it's about reparenting ourselves. Parenting ourselves like maybe we weren't even parented. It's like learning to be our own parent. So it's like another take on inner child work. So we're going to look a little bit about that when we're doing the meditation thing, which we should start really, otherwise we'll be here all night. Has anyone got any questions or anything else they want to add? Was this useful? Okay, good. I'm just going to drink some more. So basically, get comfortable and enjoy. I'm just going to run and get some more water because I'm running out. Whilst you guys get comfy. Okay. I'm going to turn your videos off. So just close your eyes and settle. Allow yourself to just calm your system. Know that you're giving yourself some space to untangle the mind, the emotions, the relations, the connections. It's your moment of peace, decluttering. So just take some nice breaths, maybe even sigh. Just keep dropping deeper and deeper. Time now to unhook your attention and your energy from your environments and your universe. So take a moment just to visualize all of the people and all of the things and all of the spaces where your attention is held day by day. So you'll think of your energy interactions with your loved ones, colleagues, family, neighbors, just people you have to interact with. Think of the deeper web of your histories, your family's histories. And there's such a deep and vast web of interactions that have brought us to where we are now. Think about all the energy you put into that web of your universe and how much energy comes to you. Who's paying attention to you? Who's thinking about you? Who's frustrated with you? Who wishes more from you? Just take a moment to feel the threads and cords, the dents, the weight. How does your body react to all these interactions? Are you shooting out of your body? Does it make you dizzy? Does it make you heavy? Does it make you shrink? Does it make you hide? Or does it make you want to be louder and reckless? Everyone's different. Every interaction probably brings out a different side of you. Now, using your intention, your willpower, your love for yourself, I'd like you to start drawing in your personal, vital energy from all of these interactions and peoples and spaces and events. Really tap in to your power of bringing your own energy back to you. Really connect with the sensation. How does it feel to pull your energy in? Is it like a suction or like a hoover feeling around the chest? Or is it pouring in over your head? Or is it really hard to feel? Pull all your attention in. Pull all your energy in. Reclaim everything you give out. Feel it fill up in your body. From your toes all the way up to the top of your head. Just feel your system fill up and fill up and fill up. You're giving out so much energy in your thoughts, in your emotions, with your unconscious content. Energy is constantly pouring out of us. Where is it going? What could you put into place? What could you shift in the way you function that would stop this leaking or this fritting away of your energy? If every word and every emotion and every action has a charge that you're putting into the field or into people outside of yourself, where does that leave you? Right now, you're taking the opportunity to fill your cup, to fill up with your own energy. Decide now to become conscious of how you spend your energy in the day, just so you can become more aware of what it's doing and how you use it. And imagine what you could do with all that energy in your system. What could you start? What could you create? What could you heal? the more you unhook from what's around you, the stronger your energy field gets. The stronger your radiance becomes visible. Now draw back all the smallest particles of your energy, like the little comet trails, the little particles and atoms and vibrations that you emit into the world. Now pull all them in now. And take a moment to just do the final zipping in of all of your energy. Take a deep breath. Now I'd like you to start returning any energy that doesn't belong to you. What energy is hanging around your field? How does it feel different to pulling energy in? It feels different if you really tune in and tap into the sensations and really use your willpower, like you really mean it. You really do not want to be carrying energies you've picked up, energies from the city or the town or the place you live, that you want, even the neighbor's energy or energy from your parents growing up and their beliefs, or even the news and social media and all that energy. Really push and send away. Make room for you. Make room so that you can unfold. Really sense into more space and energy around you, like your own energy around you, more space and air to breathe, more room for you to move and dance into. Really push energy away from you, from your core outwards. Even push away the energy of the planets, energy from the solar system, everything that's going on out there. Take ownership of your space. Take the space that you can have, that is yours. Be proud to take ownership, to become sovereign, to become the king of your, queen of your own castle. Let go of what other people want you to do. Let go of other people's expectations of you. Let go of people's opinions of you, even if they maybe don't even have one, but you think they do. Let go of all of that right now. All that matters right now is how you relate to yourself and how you relate to what you do. That's what really matters, and that is what you have an element of control over, not what other people think or do. If you have wings, unfold them and stand proud. Take the room they need. Drop right down into the smallest particles of energy in your body, into the cells, into the water molecules, and command that any energy that doesn't belong to you, any overlays, imprints, anything you've picked up that is not yours, is now leaving the body. It's lifting from every cell like a fine mist. Now feel a sonic boom, explosion from your heart into the energy field and beyond, and it just blasts off any remaining energies that are not yours. Certainly from your back, neck, spine. Unhook. Just blast it off. And then just settle and relax. We're going to do a little bit of time travel. We're going to fast forward to you in sometime in the future, a wiser, older, kinder, softer version of yourself. Maybe you have gray hair. And just look into the eyes of future you. Feel the love that future you has for the you now. Allow yourself to open enough to feel this true sense of belonging and wonder and love, and feel the arms of future you wrap you up as if you were this child of the universe that you love so much. There isn't any shame or guilt or regret. There's no such thing. It's just the wise, crinkly eyes of the kindest person in your universe, looking upon you, gazing upon you with such love. And just allow yourself for a moment to feel that comfort, that it's unconditional. Just wrap that around you right now. Know that you can visit that love at any point. Maybe future you has something to say to you now. And it's time for you to walk back to this deep space you're in right now. Come back to your present you. And then take steps towards you 10 years ago. And maybe the love you feel in your heart now that maybe you didn't understand then, you can wrap around past you from 10 years ago. And walk through the corridors of your memories, the lows and the highs. You can high five your past self or pick him or her up off the floor. Maybe you have a message. But just take a moment to wrap the past self in the same amount of love that your future self just gave you. Pour the love into the cracks that you can see easily now, that you could only feel then. That maybe felt like loneliness or despair or pain of some kind. Pour the love in now. And then walk back another 10 years to even younger you. Maybe you're like a swirling, like a goddess or God, or maybe you are light, or maybe you have a jug of golden love that you can pour into the past self. Maybe you're swirling around and just filling those spaces. Or maybe you're having a conversation with that part of you. I'm never leaving you. I can't be abandoned. How can I abandon myself? I'm never lost. I've always been here. Walk back another 10 years. Do the same again. You are loved. You belong. You are home. And walk back again. Go to 5 years old, all of everyone. And hold your 5-year-old or play with your 5-year-old. Or just sit. Build trust. Maybe nothing needs to be changed. Maybe it's just knowing that all your future selves are there with you then. Maybe there are angels looking over you and they all have your face. And finally, just see yourself, little baby self, and do what you have to do there. as you walk back through time, from being a baby all the way through to your present self now, every step you take towards now, see if you can elevate states of emotion in your body, even in your mind, of more awe and gratitude, love, excitement for life, a joy for a future you haven't even lived yet. Forgive yourself. Forgive others that have been on your path. Keep moving and swirling your energy into more love, more gratitude, more joy, more lightness, and train yourself to be in that state more and more every day. And as you come back to yourself right here, right now, we're going to do one last thing. Take a moment to visualize every word and every emotion and every thought pattern, belief, perception made up of webs of words and meaning that we've created. This architecture, feel it like a web around you, like a oval shaped web. So it's not the aura, it's words, beliefs, perceptions, and it's this web of light, filaments of light that you've created around yourself that create your perspective of the world, create how you see the world, but also how you see yourself and how you see others. It's become judgments, it's become self-judgment, it's become this is what life is like. It's beliefs about how things are. And maybe they're not true. Maybe some are, but possibly not all. We don't know anything about what's happening down here. Not really. And we want to be safe by putting a word on it or by labeling it. So we've got a web of words that surround us, good and bad. And I'd like you to imagine that these, right now, before your very inner eye, these filaments of lights and words are melting, evaporating right now. Start afresh. Look at the world with new eyes. Construct meanings in new ways. Create new myths around old stories. And maybe some of them take longer to melt and evaporate because they were someone else's perspective that came before you. But it will melt. Just allow this matrix and web of words to slowly just fade and dissipate in the wind. Now, take nice deep breaths, put your hand on your heart, and thank yourself for doing this work, because many are not. And promise yourself something that you would like to start shifting in your own life. And in your own time, come back. Come back to the room you're in, come back to our virtual room. And if anyone has anything to share, that would be wonderful. I love hearing. Has everyone fallen asleep?
That was awesome.
Nice.
Oh, let me turn on my video. Weird.
What I always say at this stage as well is if you have any feedback or you want to just write something in the crystal gathering group, that's always useful just to let other people know what we're doing, and that it's, if you found it useful or what and how, that would always be cool if you have the time to drop a few words in there. You can't put your video. Do you want your video on? Because I can do it from here.
Yeah, I think we cannot put our video on. It has to be done from you, they say.
Oh yeah, because I told it. I took it off before. Ta-da.
Yeah.
For a moment there, I thought everyone would like, oh god, like, where's everyone gone? And yeah, so did you guys find that nice? Or
Yeah.
what was?
I felt very collected. So yeah.
Do you do balancing on yourself? I don't know how other people teach really, but do you pull your energy in and send energy back and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I haven't been super diligent about it lately, which is, but yeah. I try to do it hardcore at least like once a week, but
yeah. Well, that's what we try and do. Not every time, but there's always something like what we just did. And it was a bit different today, but we did a balancing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I used to do more than I do. I think like after this year, this Earth year started, I feel like it's difficult for me actually to do energy sorting. I don't know why, but something changed for me, and it seems like I have to. Well, I don't know why, but it's just not easy for me. But when I'm here with you and we do it here together, it's easy for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes when I've found when it feels like nothing's happening and I'm like, what? I sometimes think that it's just because let's say it's an interaction between two people and you're pulling your energy in, and let's say there's like loads of stuff and you're just pulling this much every day, it doesn't feel like much is happening. Maybe there's just a lot to pull back and it just doesn't feel like much is happening. I don't know, but it's worth keep doing it anyway. I think even if it feels like it's not doing anything, but even movement, there's other ways of doing it, I think, for different people.
Sometimes like I actually just imagine what it would feel like if I were totally balanced, and then like I think that does it for me. I was like, what would it feel like if I were totally balanced? And then like it just sort of shifts, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, in Finland, because I've been learning from Johanna, we've been teaching together. She's the Finnish instructor. They do it like instant. They just go like, like pull energy in, send energy back, and that's it. That's done. Whereas I was like, well, when I first did it, I was doing it so much, but I think it really helped because then and eventually I didn't have to clear past stuff anymore. I just was clearing that day or whatever was just going on now, rather than like years of unprocessed stuff.
I tend to do mine every day, but it's like a little bit at it. I mean, it's not as big. So like when I first started doing it after my aura transformation, I could feel, swaths of energy coming back to me and, a lot of stuff going out. Whereas now it's just like it is just kind of the little things where like, oh, and it's nice to check in with certain things where I was like, was I giving my energy to that? And I was like, I was giving my attention to it, but I realized I was not giving my energy to it.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm kind of like, oh yeah, no, actually I'm good there. Fine, great.
Well, I had to do a huge one today because I completely forgot to even do it. But I could feel I've not been sleeping, and my energy's been in like 10 different countries that I'm going to go to this year, already preparing the energy. And I'm like, come on, you don't need me to do that. And I could feel like every time I close my eyes, I see this like 10 strings going across the planet, and then me being wired. And I'm like, oh. And then so in the kinesiology session I had on me today, she was like, why don't you just pull that energy in? And I felt so much better pretty much instantly from doing that. So it can be in weird and wonderful ways as well. But yeah, we all forget, I think, sometimes to do these things. But yeah, I love doing it. The more you do it, the clearer you become. And then it's so much easier just to feel when something's not right. And then you can get quite excited, like, who's sending me energy? You know, and you can be like, is it you? Yeah. Because it can make it like a symptom of someone's energy coming at you, can make you feel very tired or very like, some kind of just not right. And then you can be like, what is that about? And then you can usually find something going on. And if if it's not out there, it's inside. It's an inside job. But I'm gonna go.
So can I say something? I felt like this time when I did it, I think one of the things I like about when you guide us is it's just like this about giving it. Just it's a different picture you put, like the thing that like the what was it? That it has to like when it leaves the body, it's like like this weather where it's cloudy, fog or mist, yeah, like a mist that really helped a lot. Yeah. And I think I realized that I have been into lately, and I knew that, but I think that's why I had a problem energy sorting recently, because I fell into a very negative energy, and I feel like both inside myself and around me. So I feel like I have to make changes energetically within myself and work with it. And I also have to maybe make changes outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting when I'm working on someone and we talk through a balancing, and then I say, do the big stuff and the explosions, or do the smallest particles, and everyone responds better to one or the other somewhere. And then they know they can stick to that. If the little particles of energy works for them, visualize that. If explosions work better for you, do that. I'm only saying it in all those different ways, just so that something hooks in. Like, that's working for me today. Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna go. Bedtime. Okay. Hopefully.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. See you next time.
All right. See ya.
Ciao, ciao.